certainly none that were labeled as such.
Right. You have no problems with his vital functions at any of those 3 visits in July, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you have testified that the loss of that generally in starvation cases you will have a loss of tissue underneath the skin, correct?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And that you have fatty tissue. That fatty tissue is all over. It's in our faces, it's in our abdomens, our arms, legs, and everywhere else.
Pretty much.
And that certain kinds of rashes may develop if you are experiencing starvation.
Correct.
And is that because starvation, or why is that? What are the rashes?
I'm not really sure why they develop, but it probably has to do with changes in the skin, like less moisture in the skin and things of that nature. But beyond that, I can't tell you specifically why skin changes are part of starvation.
And then that if you are being starved, that you're increasingly less able to carry on physical activities, and that and as it becomes more and more extreme, you may not even be able to get up and walk or to do certain things like that because you've lost so much muscle, your body's incapable of moving.
Correct.
Now, you noted that the hair starts falling out and becomes thinner and thinner and more breakable is a sign of starvation.
Yes.
And then in this term, there's 2 types of starvation, or I guess, is it malnutrition or starvation? The kwashiorkor?
Mm-hmm.
Can you pronounce that name for me?
Kwashiorkor? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Kwashiorkor and okay, I'm gonna spell this and make sure that you can do it on the good spell correctly.
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, can I, as a demonstrative, just to show the spelling of the word? Okay, good. And then on what is kwashiorkor?
So that kwashiorkor is a type of malnutrition where the person is still having access to carbs, carbohydrates, not necessarily a normal amount, but at least some, but is not having access to protein or fat. So they are getting some calories and a little bit of nutrition, but it's a very skewed kind of nutrition that really doesn't provide optimal conditions for the body to grow. And these are children that you may have seen photos of from West Africa, which is where this is seen most, where they are very underweight and very weak and everything else, but have very distinct families.
Okay. And then what is the other kind?
The other kind is called marasmus, marasmus.
Okay. And so this, can I put distended belly under this term? Would that set it apart from this?
Yeah, that's kind of the characteristic feature of it. And they also tend to have very significant skin changes as well.
Okay. And should I put skin changes as well?
Yeah. And they also have more dramatic hair changes while around. Your hair typically changes to kind of an orange color and it becomes very brittle.
Okay. And then in regards to the marasmus,
Marasmus, yes.
marasmus.
And we actually U.S., we don't really use the term as much anymore. We call it protein and calorie malnutrition.
On which one?
Marasmus. And the reason for that is because marasmus is the more typical type of malnutrition where the child is just not getting any nutrition at all, essentially. So it's not just the carbs they're missing out on, but they're missing out on protein and fat. So it's a global kind of malnutrition that is more typical for children that we see here in the U.S.
So, tell me the terminology you use again.
Protein,
Okay.
calorie, malnutrition.
Okay, and you said this is more of a global,
It just means global malnutrition. Like, in other words, the children are not getting any significant nutrients. And it's more the typical we see here in the U.S.
okay, and so in regards to Benji's case, did he have washi or did he have marasmus?
Yeah, marasmus.
Okay. And we're focused on this one, right?
Yes.
Marasmus. And are there any special, like, things that we look for under marasmus that we don't? That are different?
Well, they don't have the distinct belly. If anything, it's the opposite. They have going in belly, a concave belly, and because it just represents weight loss. They're just losing weight over every part of their body. They have. They also can have hair and skin changes, but they're not as dramatic as with kwashiorkor or with really much subtle. But over time, they start losing hair as well, and they start getting skin rashes.
Okay, so they can also, so the skin change and hair change and rashes are not just for washi or it can also happen here.
Well, it's more dramatic with kwashiorkor, but it definitely happens with marasmus as well, especially as it becomes more severe.
Okay. Now, when you said that the newborn testing that they did for screening for genetic metabolic concern, they do a newborn testing. Why do they do that?
They look for 55 genetic or metabolic conditions that can seriously affect the child's health.
Okay, and in reviewing the records, do you recall, normally they do 2 screens, right?
Right.
And did you ever see a second screen for Benji?
I think I only saw one.
Okay, and why would you need a second screen? Why would they do 2 screens?
Well, in the ordinary situation where a baby's born and goes home the next day or the day after that, the parent, they haven't had enough protein feeds yet to really develop those metabolic pathways that are being tested. And so typically when a baby comes back in for his 2-week checkup, they go back to the hospital and have a second test. Now, since Benji was there for longer than just a couple of days, it's possible that that had something to do with why only one was done. I honestly don't know for sure. And it's entirely possible that he has a second one, but the results were just in a different place or something like that.
And so let's talk about metabolic issues that can arise after birth. Can you get metabolic disorders after birth?
There are a couple, there aren't very many, but there are a couple of metabolic conditions that can develop later in life.
And what are those?
Well, the most common one would be diabetes. The thyroid gland can develop problems later in life. That's called acquired hypothyroidism. And I guess there are a couple of other hormone-related ones. There's one called Cushing's syndrome, Addison's disease, and a few more. But they're pretty, with the exception of diabetes, they're pretty uncommon, especially in children, and are usually present in such a way that they can be identified early.
Okay, and what are some of the symptoms of diabetes?
It's called, the classic ones that we look for. And I'm going to say there's two kinds of diabetes. I'm going to talk about type 1 diabetes, which is the kind that usually presents in childhood. And the symptoms are drinking too much, drinking a lot, eating a lot, and urinating a lot.
Okay, and what would be a high blood sugar for a young 4-year-old or 4-year-old?
Pretty much the same as in adults, over 100.
And if Benjamin did have that and somebody missed it, could that cause starvation and death?
No, it is a different kind of death.
Did you testify previously regarding that same question and answered yes?
Well, I did testify previously about this issue and whether Benji had it. I don't remember that specific question being asked.
Would it help to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Your statement?
Well, it could certainly cause death if someone missed it. Starvation probably isn't the right word.
Okay. But if somebody missed that when you had diabetes, it could cause death, correct?
It would cause death to miss type 1 diabetes, but typically it would be over the course of a week and a half or 2 weeks at the most. It wouldn't be something that took 9 months to develop.
Now, would you agree with me that in your specialization in child abuse, diabetes isn't really your focus? Is that correct?
Well, it is in the setting of medical neglect. Like if a family is not getting the diabetes treated, we would certainly get involved with that.
Okay, and so, are you aware that Benji received CPR in this case?
Yes, I am.
And that he had EMS came out to him?
Yes.
And that he had a finger stick glucose of 300?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And is it possible he had diabetes?
Well, I mean, I guess it's possible he developed some form of diabetes as a terminal event, like as he was dying. But once again, diabetes doesn't, it doesn't take months for type 1 diabetes to kill somebody. It takes weeks. So the time frame is not consistent with diabetes for what happened the last few months of Benji's life.
Now, did you testify previously that in response to, is it possible you have diabetes? Yes, it is possible.
Well, I mean, I'd feel more comfortable if I could see the transcript of that. Yes, I did say it was
glucose level at the ER on 8/17/2021.
I remember that it was elevated. I don't remember the exact number.
Would it help to see your card?
There we go. 214, yes.
Is that a high level?
It is.
Now, I need to show you what as the EMS records from August 17, 2021. Would you agree with me that they indicate that they did perform a suction?
Assumption? Yes.
Okay, thank you. And would you agree with me that in addition to the EMS doing a suction on Minji, the ER doctor also did a suction of the contents, the internal contents of the stomach?
Yes.
I pass the witness.
Member Speaker. Dr. Booth, I'm going to show you first what's already been exhibit number 103, which is the records from the pediatrician. Is what I'm showing you is exhibit number 103, that newborn X-ray.
Second test, yes. There it is. Okay.
Okay.
That is what that means.
There's that second test, and he's negative, right?
Correct. Everything was normal.
Okay. So again, that's for the 55 potential metabolic genetic conditions.
Correct.
How does one die from type 1 diabetes?
So, type 1 diabetes means that the body just suddenly loses the ability to make insulin from the pancreas, and so it can't absorb glucose out of the bloodstream into the organs. And so glucose is what all of our organs live on every day, and so things start going badly very quickly once glucose is not available to the rest of the body. And so one thing that happens is the blood sugar builds up to very high levels and starts pulling water out of the body in the form of urine because of those high glucose levels. The second thing is the body starts looking around for other energy sources and starts metabolizing fat, in particular like crazy, which releases a waste product called ketones. And ketones are very toxic to the body at high levels. And so the ultimate cause of death with untreated type 1 diabetes is basically severe dehydration and what's called ketoacidosis.
And talking about ketoacidosis, would you expect if somebody has ketoacidosis there would be ketones in the blood?
I would.
What about acetone?
Acetone is one of the ketones, so yes.
So if Dr. Molina testified that she drew the blood and there was no acetone, what would that indicate to you?
That he wasn't having ketoacidosis.
It would not have died from type 1 diabetes.
Correct. Really a fatal case of type 1 diabetes would always involve ketoacidosis, and so if it wasn't there, then the cause of death was something else.
I want to talk about visit on 7/21 of 21. First of all, are you aware of who does coding? Meaning the codes that are entered in the medical records.
It's a clerical function, like in other words, the hospital or the emergency room's clerical staff, after the fact, codes the visit, and it's part of the billing process.
Okay, so is it a doctor who enters in codes?
It depends on the environment. I can tell you that the ER docs very rarely are the ones who enter their coding.
Okay. So I want to show you the record on 7/21 of 21. What is I'm going to spell Hirsutism.
Hirsutism?
Yes.
That means excessive body fat.
Could that also be consistent with Lanugo?
Yes, it can.
And again, Lanugo is consistent with the malnutrition.
Correct.
And again, that was the ER visit on 7/21 and 21.
Correct.
So I want to look at again, the record on 7/21 with 20. So where it says, as child had poor weight gain over the last few months, it says no. Is that fair to say? Did she go to the chosen ER prior to 7/21 to 21?
Yes.
And what was his weight then?
Let's see, he had an ER visit on, I believe it was in April,
April 1st, I believe?
or March 25th and April 1st. So we had 2 ER visits earlier that year.
Okay, let's look at the one closest to that, 4/1 of 21. You know that one?
Yes, sorry. For 1 of 21, he weighed 14.6 kilograms.
Okay. Is that consistent with the child having that he not having poor weight gain over the last few months?
Well, on July 21st, he weighed 13.8, so he actually lost, as I think has been pointed out, almost, almost a kilo. So he actually lost 2 pounds from April to July. So it would not be consistent with normal weight gain, obviously.
And that's at the same facility, right?
Correct.
Okay. These types of you need to see again that I'm talking about these screens that are entered in sometimes.
Oh, I don't have a copy of that.
Okay. Are a lot of these just kind of clicking when you're going through the record, whether you do intake on somebody?
Yes, they're done very quickly, but I would also point out that the information is obtained from the parent or guardian who comes with the child.
Right, and then in that, you can look below that. Does it talk about eating, child eating?
It does.
What does it say?
The question is, has child been eating/feeding less in the last few weeks? And the answer is reported is no.
Okay, so the parents at that point do not report that there's been feeding issues and that there's now weight gain issues.
According to the record.
Ms. Sawyers was asking you questions as it relates to starvation and being able to carry on with daily activities. Is there some nuance to that?
I think so. I mean, starvation happens over a period of time in most cases. You know, it's a gradual process. It's not, in most cases, it's not that someone locks a child in the closet and then they don't get fed at all after that. It's a process of being fed too little, infrequently, things of that nature. And so it's a gradual loss of weight. And what you get with that is also a gradual loss of function. So it's not like from one day to the next they suddenly can't walk or something like that. It's a gradual weakening of the body over time.
But in somebody that's malnourished, have you seen cases where they can still walk?
Yes.
They can still talk?
Yes.
So just because the fact that a child is walking and talking does not mean that they are not malnourished.
Correct.
She asked you about negative effects on the bodily functions in prior visits. Is there enough information in the records for you to definitively say one way or another as it relates to his bodily organs?
I don't feel that there is enough information in the medical record. A lot of these are ER visits. The focus is on something else. The pediatrician visits, even there the focus was on something else, usually ear infections, which was also happening a lot to Benji that year. And so that was generally the reason that he was being brought in.
When we were talking about BMI and charting it specifically as it related to State's Exhibit number 219, the Z-scores that we filled out, or the Z-score that we filled out for the BMI at his death. Why didn't you chart the BMI?
I apologize. There was an action exhibit that was right here that now I'm not seeing, and I just want to make sure it isn't even lost and might be able to work for someplace else.
This one?
No, it was this one, but without the extra marks.
I think it's better to get rid of
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure it was in the same place. Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. State's Exhibit number 219. This particular exhibit.
Okay.
When charting BMI, you have to take into account the height, right?
Yes.
And so we've already discussed the height that you looked at was spurious. Is that fair to say?
Well, starting around age 4, it certainly looks like that at least some of the heights were not accurate because there's outliers all over the place. So if you can't trust the height measurement, the BMI is not going to be trustworthy either.
So looking at the defense exhibit number 41, I want to go to the portions here. In your opinion, is it likely that Benji was getting shorter, getting taller, getting shorter and taller on the same day, and getting taller? And is it this type of sporadic jumps in the record prevent you from relying on the height as much? As it relates to self-harm that was indicated in the record on that shows the visit in 7/21 of 21, to your recollection, did you see any other medical records that indicated that Benji was engaging in self-harming behavior?
On the ER record from August the 17th, the day that he died, Dr. Kumar, who was the treating physician that day, made a note per parent. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is from the prior. She made a note that on the prior ER visit, the parents reported Benji had a history of self-harming behavior. And also on that day, it's noted that the stepmother described numerous episodes where Benji was trying to make himself throw up.
So other than the 7/21 and 8/17, did you ever see any other medical records to indicate that the parents are reporting that Benji is engaging in self-harming behavior?
No.
So, Ms. Boyers went over with you some pictures and asked, is there buccal fat in this photograph? My question to you is that even on the day of his, let's say the picture on the right, does he still have buccal fat on that picture?
Is there a way that I can see the picture itself?
I don't have this one picture, but I can rotate the TV for you.
Can I
Is there anything that's happened?
Well, it definitely has buccal fat. Its cheeks are nice and round. Here you kind of get an idea that he may not, because you do have a little, kind of like a little concave up there. So I would say it's, it certainly appears to be less of
And that's my point, is that what we're looking at is the change in the buccal fat. That understand?
there's definitely a change.
Can somebody still have buccal fat and a child still have buccal fat and still be diet or suffer from malnutrition and starvation?
Yes, once again, I'm sure that it's really kind of a gradient where you don't suddenly lose it one day. It gradually diminishes over some period of time. So yes, I think it is possible to be malnourished and still have a little bit of buccal fat.
I'll back to this Sunday.
I'm just debating whether to give her I'm going to take aspirin.
All right, Drew.
she did?
Yes. They're trying to figure out why. And the child was even removed from the home that she was in by CPS. Like, things just dramatically changed. Yeah. That's probably information they should have shared with you if you're gonna give an opinion.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
can change the angles as well as the pull of your skin in a natural way to make you look skinnier in some photos. And as you can see on the left, he has his arms down and you can't really tell, but you can look, the way that your body is positioned can make you look more gaunt than in others, correct?
Maybe to a certain extent. I really don't think it could cause that dramatic of a difference between the two pictures.
So, I want to show you what's been marked as Bennett's Exhibit 31. And you testified earlier that you had less concerns over this photo, correct?
Yes.
And you see, would you agree with me that he's showing wiggle fat?
It looks like it, yes.
Okay. And that the angle of this photo, even though he has his shirt off, is more similar in facial expression to how the photo on the left looked, correct? Because he was smiling in both photos.
Oh, well, that's true.
And so it's hard to compare these different body statures when your face is sucking on a bottle versus when you're smiling, right? It gives you two different presentations.
Yes, it's going to be a different presentation.
And then when we went back to Defendant's Exhibit 32, you can see that you would agree that he's not wearing anything that's covering his arms, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what date that photo was taken?
No.
Okay. Do you know what date this photo was taken? The Defendant 31.
I don't. I'm not.
Do you
I'm
know
not for
what
certain.
date this photo was taken? Defendant's Exhibit 22.
I know.